Hey folks, hello gorgeous. Back with another book review. No, it's not another Sobs review, although another one of those is coming soon. This is going to be the best damn Star Wars book I have ever read. The novelization, I should say in quotes, for Revenge of the Sith. Now the reason I say novelization in quotes is because this book does not read like a typical novelization of a movie, and it certainly does not feel like an adaptation of Revenge of the Sith as written and directed by George Lucas. I read this one a few years ago after being left wanting more by the Star Wars prequel movies, and it totally blew me away. Then I listened to the audiobook, and it totally blew me away. And I'm very happy to say that after rereading it and listening to the audiobook again just recently, still just as amazing as I remember it. Now there's going to be a lot of people who are very skeptical because they think, how can you make chicken salad out of chicken shit? But here's the deal with the Revenge of the Sith novel. Matthew Stover, the author of this book, is not making chicken salad out of chicken shit. What he is actually doing is he's making chicken salad out of chicken salad. The story itself is a great story, the one that was alluded to during the original Star Wars trilogy. It was a can't-miss story, a can't-screw-up story. Although a certain Uncle George certainly proved that wrong, didn't he? It was a basic Shakespearean tragedy, and unfortunately, the movies didn't really pull it off because of the camera techniques used, the performances by the actors, the overabundance of special effects. It's been discussed ad nauseum what was wrong with the prequels. But reading this book and listening to the audiobook, it makes me really realize that the Star Wars prequel trilogy, or the prequel story, the story of Obi-Wan and Anakin Skywalker, maybe wasn't ever meant to be a movie. I think it's a story that requires some imagination, just because it's something that was alluded to during the original trilogy, and so many people spent so much time wondering what happened and how things went down. And when you see things and hear things in extreme detail unfolding in front of you on the screen, nothing is left to the imagination, and you're just a bystander to these events. Whereas when you are reading a book, or even listening to an audiobook, the visuals are something that you can come up with on your own. The reactions that you see on people's faces, the intonation in their voices. There's going to be skeptics who think that anything associated with the prequels is going to be garbage, and that's just too bad for them, because this really is the best damn Star Wars book I have ever read. Now, I'll usually recommend a book over an audiobook. Audiobooks are convenient to listen to on your way to work or when you're out for a walk on the old iPod. But in this case, I really have to recommend the audiobook because of the ambiance. It's narrated by Jonathan Davis, who is the absolute best audiobook reader that I have ever heard. His cadence is wonderful. His imitations range from adequate to fantastic. He really captures the essence of the character when he's reading their lines. It may not be a perfect impression, but he really does sound like the character. And in some cases, he does the character even better than the character was done in the movie. 3 characters I can name right off the top of my head are Yoda. Even though Yoda was voiced by the original voice of Yoda, Frank Oz, in the movies, I think Jonathan Davis does a better job here. He's got more strength and steadiness to his voice as Yoda in this book. I think his Palpatine is better than Ian McDiarmid's, and definitely his Darth Sidious as well. It just sounds more controlled, more intense, more focused, more scary and foreboding. McDiarmid is awesome in the movies, but he does also come off as that mustache-twirling villain, whereas Davis's Palpatine and Sidious is very sinister and very seductive. That dark side was supposed to be seductive. The line that was given to us by Obi-Wan Kenobi was that Vader was seduced by the dark side. I never felt that in the movie. It never felt like he was seduced by anything. But in the book, it really does feel intoxicating, confusing, bewildering. And a large part of that in the audiobook is the ambient noise. There is music used in the audiobook, which is awesome. There is sound effects like lightsabers, blasters, explosions. That stuff is all cool, and it adds a little bit of action to the story. But what I think is really effective about the audiobook is the ambient noise, the starship noise in the background, that low, constant hum. And then in key scenes, such as when Palpatine is seducing Anakin Skywalker, there's a hum in the background and it's disorienting. It's weird. The book does a great job of putting you in the shoes of Anakin Skywalker, which I think the movie did not do very well. That's why a lot of people watch the movie and they go, I didn't buy the turn. The whole movie hinges on the turn, and if you don't buy it, then you just don't buy the whole movie. It's a failure. But in the book, when that is happening, when Anakin Skywalker is being seduced by Palpatine, I felt disoriented. I felt like, what is going on? I felt like Anakin Skywalker. What is he saying? He's making sense. He's mixing truth with the lies. And that's not the only time that that happens. It happens earlier on in the book as well when Count Dooku is betrayed. That's another great thing about the book. It gets to go into so much more detail than the movie did, because the movie was a movie. And it was also the third of 3 movies, and it felt too rushed. It felt like there was still too many loose ends to tie up in too little amount of time. This book is over 400 pages, so it gets to go at a nice, slow pace, and the detail is very much appreciated. Things like a nice long scene between Dooku and Palpatine at the beginning of the story that wasn't included in the movie. We get to really get into Count Dooku's mind. He's in the movie for a couple minutes. He's like an afterthought. In the book, while his appearance is short, it is very, very sweet. You get to find out all of his motivations and all of his aspirations, how he thinks everything is going to play out. And it actually does kind of suck when he is betrayed, rather than just, oh, he got what he deserved. When he's betrayed in the book, it's a hint of things to come. You find out that Palpatine is really, really sneaky. He's just so much more manipulative in the book rather than in the movie, where nothing feels all that clever. In the book, he really does feel like a really slithery, slimy snake who keeps getting away with everything. Another great scene that really conveys how deceptive he is and how good at lying is that he sets up an audio recorder when the Jedi are about to arrest him. And while he is killing the Jedi, this recorder is going and he's making it sound like they're arresting him and hurting him and trying to take over the Republic. Brilliant. That's the Palpatine, the Emperor, that I always pictured when I was watching the original trilogy. Other effective techniques used are referring to Darth Sidious as the Shadow. A lot of this book is very, very artistic, not literal. So in scenes where Palpatine is his evil persona, Darth Sidious, in the book he's referred to as the Shadow. It just makes him seem so much more mysterious and so much harder to fight. Where is the Shadow? How do you fight a shadow? It's just everywhere, and it's fluid, and it's sneaky, and it's just larger than life. It's undescribable. It's not something that can be summed up in an action figure to put on your shelf. And that's the problem with the prequel trilogy. It just felt like a toy commercial. Yeah, Return of the Jedi felt like that to some extent, but the prequel trilogy really, really hit that merchandise hammer hard. And that's what I love about the book. It's not about, look at this cool thing that you got to own, and look at that cool thing that you got to own. By taking away the visuals, it makes everything seem so much deeper. And for this particular story, the fall of Anakin Skywalker, the transformation of Anakin into Darth Vader, I think it works wonderfully. I think it is a cerebral story, and I think it's a heart story. And I finally feel this story as told by Matthew Stover, not as shown by George Lucas. So another thing to keep in mind with this novelization is that it was written before Revenge of the Sith's script was written. So there are many, many scenes that are different, and there is a lot of dialogue that is different. There's more dialogue, it's better, or it's completely different. So if you're like me and you were disappointed by The prequel trilogy, and especially the most important of the prequel trilogy, Revenge of the Sith, this is your reboot. This is your second chance. There's no need to hope that Disney will reboot them in a couple of years with a totally new cast and retell the story. It's here, it's in a book, it's by the incredibly talented author Matthew Stover. The guy is just incredible at painting a picture, at making you feel what's going on, at pulling the heartstrings, at going from joy to elation to heartbreak to sorrow to redemption. And he does action great as well. Like the Shadow, another one of those artistic descriptions is the dragon. They refer to Anakin Skywalker's fear as the dragon, and then later on when he turns to the dark side, he is referred to as the dragon. Again, a larger-than-life imagery fitting of a larger-than-life character like Darth Vader. Another great thing about the book is that we get plenty of Darth Vader. Genuine Darth Vader. In the movie, he turns to the dark side and he's kind of whiny and emo-y and he cries. And then his eyes are yellow for a little bit, and then he fights Obi-Wan while he's whining, and then he's in the suit. So for me, it felt like we only really got a minute of Darth Vader when he's actually in the suit. In this book, Darth Vader appears when Anakin Skywalker turns to the dark side. There's a very short transition period where he sheds his Anakin attitude and becomes the ultra-confident Darth Vader. He's charming. He's kind of funny. He's incredibly powerful, and he's cool, and he's calm. He actually has a couple of great one-liners when he's slaughtering the separatist leaders. In the movie, it was just slash, 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 and that was it. Basically being a mindless drone of the Emperor. But in the book, he actually is witty, and seeds of dissent are planted even before the duel with Obi-Wan Kenobi, where it feels believable that his power is growing and this guy's getting too big for his britches, and he already wants to overthrow his master. He also has a diseased, corrupted aspect to his personality. He does want to overthrow Palpatine very quickly, and then, although he wants to rule with his wife, Padme, that degenerates very quickly as well. I buy it so much more in the book than I did in the movie. The hate that's just filling Darth Vader, and it's turning him against everybody. That scene at the end when Obi-Wan shows up to kill Vader is a really heart-wrenching scene. It's not just something that, like in the movie when I watched it, I went, oh my god, it's the green screen and people trying to be emotional. Even if you're listening to the audiobook, you still have to visualize, imagine visually what's going on. And it just seemed so much heavier, deeper, and sad. Another cool scene in the book that didn't make it to the movie, it got cut, is the seeds being planted of the rebellion with Mon Mothma and Bail Organa. Blink and you miss him, Bail Organa in the movie. He's not in the book that much, but his scenes are so much better. He just becomes a more believable character. It's all about the dialogue, and he has more dialogue. And speaking of the dialogue, it's all so much more eloquent than what we heard in the movies. The major difference between the book and the movie is, for example, at the beginning of the movie, they have this long, sprawling shot of the two Jedi starfighters flying through space during the Clone Wars, and ships are shooting at each other and they're blowing up, and it's just visual diarrhea all over the screen. The book is all about telling you, showing you how everyone is feeling. This is what it feels like to be this person. This is what it feels like to be that person. So while in the movie, it goes at breakneck speed, explosions, blasters, blam, 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 what the book constantly is doing is, while it's in a scene like that, pause. And the author says, this is what it's like to be Obi-Wan Kenobi. And he takes the time, he breathes. It's something that a lot of people don't do these days, but one of the key secrets to enjoying anything in life is to just breathe. And the author does that. He breathes, and he takes a moment, and he tells you what it's like to be Anakin Skywalker. And he tells you what it's like to be Obi-Wan Kenobi. And then a little later on, he tells you what it's like to be Anakin and Obi-Wan. and what other people think of Anakin and Obi-Wan. And he builds that relationship up so that it's not like in the movies where it's just two guys who bickered all the time and then fought, of course. In the book, it's two guys who were brothers, and everybody, not just the two of them, but everybody knew the relationship they had, how tight they were, how close they were, how much they cared for each other, like brothers, like family. And that's what makes that duel at the end so heartbreaking. That's what pulls it off. And because the author frequently stops, hits the pause button, and says, this is what it's like to be Anakin Skywalker right now. You knew what he felt like. You knew what he felt like at this next point. And at this next point, you are seeing the decline, the degradation of Anakin Skywalker into Darth Vader. So it's not just there, he's Vader now. It's gradual. It's the way it's supposed to be. It's a character arc. And not all character arcs are hero arcs like Luke Skywalker. Anakin's arc, at least in the prequel trilogy, is supposed to be an arc down. It's a decline. It's a fall. It's a tragedy. And it's so powerful at the end of the book when he's in the suit and the author tells you, this is what it's like to be Anakin Skywalker forever. You really empathize with what he has lost, not just physically in terms of his limbs and his skin, but emotionally, the relationships that he's lost permanently, his brother, his wife, his children. And it's not just the story of Anakin and Obi-Wan that is improved in this book. Everything feels improved, even Yoda. Whereas in the movie, Yoda was just kind of in the background, and then he shows up for the big fight at the end with Palpatine. I liked his character in this book a lot more. It's Obi-Wan in the book after the slaughter of the Jedi who's despairing and feeling like I should have let the clones finish me off. He doesn't want to deal with any of this. And it's Yoda that's the one that says to Obi-Wan, stop despairing. And he's gruff and he's stern about it. Get a hold of yourself. You're a Jedi, man. And there's a great line that's not in the movie, but it's in the book. It's a play on the old do or do not, there is no try. In the book, when Obi-Wan is trying to figure out why did Anakin do this? Why did he slaughter all the Jedi, the younglings? Why has he done this? Yoda responds curtly with, why matters not. There is no why. That's exactly what I would expect from Yoda in that situation. Why doesn't matter. We have a job to do. We have always had a job to do, and we've always done it. And that is not going to change right now. We have a job to do, and we're going to do it. And he does it. And I love all the extra little details, like the describing of the statue that Palpatine hides his lightsaber in. Constantly hitting the pause button and just painting this world for us instead of the breakneck, non-stop speed of the movie. I don't feel this story was meant to be told at 150 miles an hour. I think it was meant to be a slow burn, something that bubbles and boils, and then eventually erupts into volcanic flame all over Anakin Skywalker. And that's how the story is delivered in this book. So if you're like me and the prequels didn't do it for you, I highly recommend, before reading this book, you watch The Clone Wars, because Matt Lanter's Anakin Skywalker, I felt, was way better than Hayden Christensen's Anakin Skywalker in the movies. I really enjoyed Matt Lanter's deeper voice, his gruffer, stronger approach to the character. There's 5 seasons of the Clone Wars, so there was a lot more time for character development and to go from the idealistic young man to the starting to question things and becoming a little more bitter Anakin Skywalker that we see at the beginning of Revenge of the Sith. So because I went back and rewatched the Clone Wars before reading this book, I was able to hear Matt Lanter's version of Anakin Skywalker, which is a totally different version of the character than Hayden Christensen's, who just came off as this whiny, emo complainer. And I think that really strengthens this story, to picture Lanter's Anakin Skywalker in this story rather than the Hayden Skywalker. And it also makes his fall that much more tragic, to think of all of the heroic things that he did throughout the Clone Wars, the sacrifices that he made. It really paints a more gray picture. It doesn't justify everything he's done, but it does make him seem like a very underappreciated person to the Jedi Council. So if you're a Star Wars fan, you definitely need to read the Matthew Stover version, reboot of Revenge of the Sith, or listen to the audiobook. But before you do, like I said, clean the Anakin palette, watch some Clone Wars, and get that Matt Lanter voice for Anakin Skywalker in your head. Trust me, it'll be so much more fulfilling for you. It'll be the Star Wars prequel story that you always wanted, but you didn't see in the theater or on Blu-ray. Got a question or comment about Stover's Revenge of the Sith? Scroll down and go to town. And to join the tribe, hit subscribe. Nerd Mistake. Hadouken!